Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainable Finance Podcast. My name is Paul Ellis, and I'm your host for these programs about developments in this fast-growing industry. DeepSeek AI is unquestionably the media darling of the global information sector so far this year. News from the company in January about why DeepSeek is cheaper, faster, and better at reasoning than other platforms roiled the NASDAQ Technology Stock Market Index and raised multiple questions, including, will leading companies in the sector continue to increase their already frenzied build-out of energy center capacity? Dr. Elham Kheradmand, today's guest on the Sustainable Finance Podcast, is the CEO and co-founder of Lucid Axon and a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Montreal. We'll hear more about her experiences in a few minutes. She has over a decade of experience in AI and financial technology research and was a North American AI and ESG Leader of the Year in 2022. Dr. Kheradmand also has some insights for our followers into just how good platforms like DeepSeek are. Hello, Elham, and welcome to the Sustainable Finance Podcast.
Hi, Paul. It's a completely pleasure to be here, that I have an opportunity to talk about this. And thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you, and we're very excited about this conversation because we're a little bit concerned, as a lot of people are today, about platforms like DeepSeek and how they are affecting the competitive advantage that the U.S. has had in AI over recent years, and probably for much longer than just a few years. So what's that story about from your perspective?
Yes, that's absolutely true. It was actually a shock for everyone, in that domain, that suddenly a new language model is coming, is more efficient, is open source, and it's also available for everyone. And as you mentioned, for a long time, US companies like Google, Meta, and also OpenAI, it was like a leader in that domain for a long time. And suddenly a company from China coming and provide an AI solution that is more efficient, that is actually optimized with really new technology or new kind of innovative way. That was a shock. And actually, you mentioned that was a shock also in the financial market. People maybe in US, they're worried about, okay, now what happens if a new company coming from China is now being a leader in that domain?
So what advantages, from your perspective, does a platform like DeepSeek bring to the industry compared to the existing AI models that have been in motion for a number of years, probably most of them at least 5 years at this point, right?
Their key advantage of DeepSeek, actually the first one is they're open source. That means that there's more collaboration, and there is also opportunity for customization of those models. And it is cost effective. This is the second one. And making AI models more accessible to companies and also their researchers. And also it's energy efficient. So they're reducing the environmental impact of AI while still delivering high performance. And looking ahead, I think DeepSeek is setting a new standard for AI, one that is not just about raw power, but also efficiency, accessibility, and sustainability. And that's exactly the direction AI needs to go if we want to be a force for good, especially in ESG and responsible investment.
All right. Now, there are a lot of sustainability-focused investors in our financial markets today who are concerned about the environmental impact of these platforms and how they are affecting the production of carbon being dumped into the atmosphere. What kinds of models for the future around AI systems could be more efficient around the technology and the use of energy? Are there things in the work related to that?
So in terms of sustainability, I think DeepSeek is making AI, because DeepSeek making AI more energy efficient. So for a long time, one of the biggest concerns that for any AI development today was the insane amount of computational power and energy required, for instance, to train and run these massive models. But DeepSeek has managed to reduce energy consumption significantly, using just a fraction of computing power required by models like Meta's Llama or OpenAI's GPT. And that's a huge step forward because AI models are becoming one of the largest contributors to carbon emissions in tech world. And when we think about AI solutions for sustainability and ESG, DeepSeek's efficiency make it a great alternative for developing AI models that analyze sustainability data. Many ESG-focused AI tools require large-scale processing of corporate reports, climate disclosures, sustainability disclosures, and also there are a lot of sustainability metrics. So it's a large-scale processing of data. And having a model that is more efficient in that domain, that's actually the key advantage of DeepSeek.
Okay. Now, you have been doing research around ESG and AI analysis for about a decade, as I understand it. And could you share with us that process that you've been going through, your adventure, your work over a decade, and some of the things that you have learned and you've been able to bring to your work in this field?
So I have a decade experience, yes, in AI, but I actually started working specifically in ESG domain about 5 years ago. Right after completing my PhD, I started a postdoc at University of Montreal with a focus of understanding how AI can be useful in sustainable finance and more specifically in ESG analysis. And about your questions related to what happens in AI, ESG analysis. So over the past few years, AI in ESG analysis has come a long way. So when I first started working in that space, AI applications were pretty limited. So the goal was automation of extraction of meaningful insights from unstructured data. Things like companies' reports, regulatory filings, and news. But early approaches in that domain was just more about like using basic text classification, sentiment analysis, keyword-based extraction. But they weren't that much accurate, and at the same time, scaling was tough. But then as natural language processing and machine learning are advancing, things really started to change. We saw the development of more sophisticated models that could automate this extraction of the data and actually more automation of assessing ESG risk using AI. So the real game changer in that domain was the introduction of domain-specific AI models. So instead of just applying general AI to ESG, we started training models specifically on ESG language. That made a huge difference in precision and also reliability when evaluating corporate sustainability performance. And in terms of using generative AI and LLMs, AI-driven ESG analysis has become much easier to implement and more scalable. So these models have made it possible to automate ESG reporting, risk assessment, and also impact measurement. But when we use LLM, we have seen that there's still sometimes LLM cannot understand the complexity that exists in sustainability. And because of this, we started to use some open source models and then try to fine tune those models on custom ESG data. So with that way, we found it that, yes, it's more be able to understand better these concepts so it will be more accurate and also transparent and reliable.
Okay, now could you tell our followers what LLM stands for? Because I'm not sure everybody in our community knows that acronym.
So LLM stands for large language models, and it's introduced, I think, about like 6 or 7 years ago. And maybe more. But large language models are the models that is trained on the huge amount of the data. And that's why we call it large language models.
Elham, how can generative AI be leveraged to design new tools or systems specifically aimed at reducing its own environmental impact?
That's a tricky question because the generative AI models, especially when they train, they consume a lot of energy. And now, and in addition, when we want to use those models, anytime that we use it, it's also energy intensive. But how we can use it more efficient? Because it actually replaces the human analysis, so it makes the work more efficient. So it's a kind of a debate of what kind of a risk of using AI and what opportunities that brings AI. And if we focus on the opportunities that these AI models are going to replace humans and, like replacing the human work, for instance, like in terms of sustainability or ESG analysis. So AI can be replaced and reduced like 60% of the time of an ESG analyst to do the work. So they actually make it more efficient. Yeah. So in terms of the energy perspective, if we think that, okay, you need to hire people. So these people are going, to travel. I don't know exactly if they're going to be using these models is going to be less efficient or be more efficient, but is a kind of compromise, between using these models and replacing the human.
Yes, as I understand it, it reduces the time that it takes for research to be done across the board because they can be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and producing a lot more information, strictly speaking, than a human researcher can do. So that seems to be one of the key advantages of using these AI platforms. And I guess part of what we're going to see over the next few years is how really efficient that is in terms of the energy use by a group of people versus the platforms that we have. So, Elham, how did you decide to start doing research in this area? You said you started about 5 years ago, and this is something that you've dedicated your work and your academic career to. So tell us the story behind that. How did you get interested in this, and how is it going in terms of what you were expecting when you started?
Yeah, absolutely. It was 5 years ago that it just right after finishing my PhD in mathematics. I was looking for research opportunity that I can apply AI and machine learning to something that I had a real world impact. That's when I had a conversation with my supervisor, Professor Manuel Morales at University of Montreal, who introduced me to a project focused on AI applications in sustainable finance. So right away, I understood that, okay, this is a field with huge potential that is not just about, financial data. It was like new field that's, okay, there's something else that we can measure the corporate impact on sustainability, climate, and society, but using AI. And when we first started, LLMs like GPT weren't really a thing. So at least it's not the way that we see them today. But we're already working on some pretty advanced AI models to extract ESG-related data, categorize it, and also perform sentiment analysis. And I can tell you some of the projects that I have done in my research. For instance, one of them, I created a methodology to predict corporate scope 1 emission. So basically, using machine learnings and more especially tree-based models, we wanted to estimate a company's scope 1 emissions based on the financial and operational data. So besides that, I also work on creating very domain-specific ESG language models that is really good with extraction of the ESG data and classifications, and also another methodology that I developed to map corporate activities with different SDGs. So we can do the alignment using AI, do the alignment of all the activities that a company is doing and how they are aligned with different SDGs.
So this is a way that you are integrating the SDGs into the analytics that companies are using as well and help them integrate into their business models. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and also it would be good for investors as well. So these AI models that we create, for instance, they said that all of the operations that a company is doing, how these operations align with SDGs. So especially for impact investors, when they want to have a positive impact by the investments, so they're looking for opportunities that they really contribute to positive aspects of SDGs. So we can say, for instance, like one company operations, and on the other side, the products and the services that they provide, how these are contributing in SDGs, positively or negatively.
Right. So that's what companies are using these type of programs for, as a process to explore how they're interfacing with the SDGs as a platform for the future in terms of sustainable business models. Okay. Anything else that you wanted to add to the work that this is the work that you're doing at Lucid Axon, right?
Yes, we actually, most of the technology that we developed at University of Montreal, we made it available in a company, called Lucid Axon. SDG alignment is one of the products that we developed based on the long-term research. And the other product, I think that, it was very useful. It was creating a chat ESG. So it's exactly the same Copilot, that you have, like ChatGPT that you can use, but it's a Copilot for ESG. So this Copilot is very specifically trained on ESG aspects, so it would be more accurate of understanding these criteria, and also it would be good for the analysis. So it would be very helpful for analyzing companies and also for benchmarking analysis as well. So a user can do the comparison with the top companies, like peers in the same industry, so that they can compare themselves to see, using that tool, they can compare themselves to see how they can be better in terms of sustainability.
That's very interesting. We did a program recently with the World Benchmarking Alliance. And I don't know if you've had any experience working with them, but this is one of the things that they're trying to provide is coordination between the SDGs and AI programs and analytical processes. And they're doing it for hundreds of programs, actually thousands of companies around the world. The work that the program we did with them was specific to the banking industry, and they had chosen 200 of the top banking companies globally, and they did detailed analysis of how they are interfacing with the SDGs and ESG as well. So that's a fascinating approach to the work that you're doing as well. And if you could tell our followers where they can learn more about your work at Lucid Axon and how they can get in touch with you with any questions that they have about the topics that we've discussed in today's episode.
Yes. So in our website, we actually have a way to contact us. So there's a request a demo. So they can request a demo. They can see all of these technology. So they can have also like a pilot project with us. And also they can reach me on LinkedIn as well. And something else that I also wanted to mention, that because our researchers are really and AI researchers for a long time are very good at in ESG, and also our AI solutions are more specific in ESG. We can also provide very customizable solutions for anything that is related to that. For instance, they have a problem, they don't know how AI can be a solution there, but we can help them because we have done a lot of research. We know exactly what is in the literature, how we can help them. So we can provide some very customizable solutions for them and solve some of their problems.
Great. So they have a way to contact you online. And I want to say thanks again very much to Dr. Elham Kheradmand for joining me in this episode. And followers of the Sustainable Finance Podcast can join me again next week for another. I'm your host, Paul Ellis, and this is the Sustainable Finance Podcast.